Hey, what's going on, everybody? We are at Riverside Cemetery in Hopkinsville, Kentucky today on a chilly, kind of gloomy day. I wanted to come here in October, but I didn't get the chance. So I thought better late than never. Let's go ahead and lock the car, because you just never know, right? So we're here today to visit the prophet, the guy who could see the future. We're here to see or visit the grave of Edgar Cayce. He had a very interesting life, to say the least. A guy that, I don't know, in the comments, you guys put your opinions on the matter. Do you think he really could see the future? Or did he have a little help? Or like some of the stuff he predicted, man, was pretty doggone close. But let me get my ad out of the way and say, if this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all those things. And if this isn't your first time here, hey, welcome back. I hope you enjoy the video. Heck of a tomb right there, right? Like that's pretty cool. But I'd like to say welcome to all the members. We've had a couple of new members, and I can't thank you guys enough for joining that. We've got the merch, Liquid IV, all the stuff, right? I got to get all my crap out of the way in the beginning. So we're gonna walk around. We'll talk about Mr. Cayce's life. We'll visit some interesting parts of the cemetery. Big cemetery. It looks very historical. I mean, it's historical in a sense. When I say that, I mean just old, right? Like there's it's almost overwhelming at all the stuff to try to look at and film, but I'm gonna try to do the best I can with what I got and see what we got. We'll talk about his life and all that good stuff. Then we'll go visit the grave as we normally do. And yeah, I don't know where I want to start, but let's get this camera turned around and we'll start talking and we'll start walking. Let's go. It's a windy, chilly day up here, but we're gonna make the best of it. It could be worse. It could be raining or snowing. Oh, and I saw a sign. See, like from the part of Alabama I'm from, like when we travel around the state, you see like hurricane evacuation routes. I swear there was a sign just down the road that said snow evacuation route, and that just blows my mind. I can't imagine having to run from snow. If we get a few inches, it shuts us down. So I don't know, that was kind of neat to see. Yeah, all right, so Cayce was born March 18th, 1877 near Beverly, Kentucky, in a small town about 100 miles north of Knoxville, Tennessee. As a child, he reportedly saw the ghost of his deceased grandmother, and he was confident that it was a ghost because the more he looked, the more it became transparent. So I think that kind of early on, he even knew, something was off. He was brought into church around the age of 10, where he became engrossed in the Bible. Over the next 2 years, he read it cover to cover over a dozen times. And in May of 1889, while reading the Bible in his hut in the woods, Cayce said he encountered a woman with wings who told him that his prayers had been answered. The woman asked him what he wanted most of all, and Cayce said that he was frightened, but told the woman he wanted to help others, especially children. He eventually decided that he wanted to be a missionary. Cayce said that the next night, after a complaint from his teacher, he said that he had generally found it difficult to focus on his lessons, his father ruthlessly tested him on spelling and angrily knocked Cayce out of his chair. Cayce said that he heard the woman with wings tell him that if he went to sleep, they could help him. He put his head on the spelling book and fell asleep. When his father returned to the room and woke up, he knew all the answers and could repeat anything in the book. He said that his father thought he had been fooling before and knocked him out of his chair again. So Cayce said that then he studied all his school books that way, by sleeping on them. My kids would love that. That's a cool little trick if the kids could only do that. So the sun's not out, but the wind's pretty crappy, and my contacts, they don't like this wind. So I'm going sunglasses on in the clouds, And he said that by 1892, he had become the best student in his class, On questioning, Cayce told the teacher that he saw pictures of the pages in his books. His father, proud of his accomplishment, spread the news. During a school ball game, Cayce was struck in his coccyx and began to act strangely. He said that he went to sleep one night, diagnosed his ailment, and recommended a cure all in his sleep. His family prepared the cure to his instructions, and it worked. So in December of 1893, the Cayce family moved here to Hopkinsville, Kentucky. They lived at 705 West 7th on the southeast corner of 7th and Young Streets. Cayce received an 8th grade education and left the family farm to pursue employment. His education ended in the 9th grade because his family could not afford the cost. A 9th grade education was often considered sufficient for, working class children, and much of Cayce's younger years were then characterized by a search for employment. So coming back out of the B-roll, I'm gonna show some of this part of the cemetery, then we'll go across and we'll show some of that part of the cemetery over there. There's a truck with a trailer, and I don't know if they're getting ready to have a burial or what's going on, so I came over here to try to stay out of the way. On March 14th of 1897, Cayce became engaged to Gertrude Evans. Throughout his life, Cayce was drawn to the disciples of Christ. He read the Bible once a year, attended church, taught Sunday school, and recruited missionaries. He said that he could see auras, that's the word. Sometimes it's hard being a redneck to say words. He could see auras around people and spoke to angels and heard the voices of departed relatives. In his early years, he agonized about whether these prophetic abilities were spiritually delivered. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, what do you think? Do you think it was, I honestly don't know, so that's why I want to hear from you guys. Like, it honestly could be anything. In the land of woo-woo, we can make it really what we want. In 1900, Cayce formed a business partnership with his father to sell Woodman of the World insurance. In March of that year, however, he developed severe laryngitis, which resulted in a complete loss of speech, and unable to work, he lived at home with his parents for almost a year. Cayce then decided to take up photography, an occupation which he would strain his voice less, and he began apprenticeship at the photography studio of W.R. Bowles in Hopkinsville here, and became proficient in his trade. A traveling stage hypnotist and entertainer named Hart, who also called himself the Laugh Man, performed in 1901 here at the Opera House. And Hart heard about Cayce's throat condition and offered to attempt a cure. Cayce accepted his offer, and the experiment was conducted in the office of Manning Brown. Cayce's voice reportedly returned while he was in his hypnotic trance, but disappeared when he awakened. Since Hart had appointments in other cities, he could not continue his hypnotic treatments of Cayce. He said that he failed because Cayce would not enter the 3rd stage of hypnosis and accept the suggestion. So let's try to make our way. Gosh, I don't really know. God, it is freezing up here. Like a front just came through, and man, it is boogering cold up here. I got to tell you that. No wonder they got a run from the snow route. Reports of Cayce's work appeared in newspapers, which prompted a number of postal inquiries. Cayce said that his work was effective with a letter from an individual with a person present in the room. Given a person's name and location, Cayce said that he could diagnose the physical and mental conditions of what he called the entity and provide a remedy. So in May 1902, Cayce got a job in a bookshop in Bowling Green, where he invented Pit, or Board of Trade, a card game which simulated wheat market trading. The game became popular, but when he sent an idea to a game company, it copyrighted it, and he received no royalties. Gotta love that stuff. Cayce and Gertrude married on June 17th, 1903, and she moved to Bowling Green, and they had 3 children. Cayce's increasing popularity attracted entrepreneurs who wanted to see his reported clairvoyance. Although he was reluctant to help them, he was persuaded to give readings. He left them dissatisfied with himself. A cotton merchant offered him $100 a day for readings about the cotton market, but despite his poor finances, Cayce refused the merchant's offer. Cayce's mature period, in which he created the institutions which survived him, may be considered to have begun in around 1925. By this time, he was a professional psychic with a small staff of employees and volunteers, and his readings increasingly had occult or esoteric themes. Money was short, but help came from interested benefactors. The idea of an association and hospital was considered, but the readings insisted on in Virginia Beach, which did not suit most of the people involved. Gertrude began to conduct the readings, and Mormon Blumenthal, who worked at the New York Stock Exchange with his trade brother, became interested in the readings, of course. It starts with a cotton guy, right? And then the stock exchange people, here they come, right? And he brought Cayce a house in West Virginia. Oh, that's awful nice of him. The Association of National Investigations to build a hospital and study the readings scientifically was incorporated in Virginia on May 6th of 1927. Blumenthal was the president, and his brother and several others were vice presidents. Cayce was secretary and treasurer, and Gladys was an assistant secretary. To protect against prosecution, anyone requesting a reading was required to join the association and agree they were participating in an experiment in psychiatric research. So Moseley Brown, head of the psychology department at Washington and Lee University, became convinced of the readings and joined the association in early 1928. So during the Depression, Cayce turned his attention to spiritual teachings, and in 1931 his friends and family asked him how they could become psychic. Out of this apparent simple question came an 11-year discourse which led to the creation of study groups. World War I was taking its toll on American soldiers, and Cayce felt that he could not refuse families who requested help for loved ones who were missing in action. He increased the number of readings to 8 a day in an attempt to reduce the ever-growing backlog of requests. Cayce said that this affected his health, and it was an emotional draining and often fatigued him. The readings themselves chided Cayce for attempting too much, saying that he should limit his workload to 2 readings a day, or his efforts are going to kill him. So what did he do? From June of 43 to June of 44, Cayce did 1,385 readings. And then by August of 44, he had collapsed from the strain. When he took a reading on his situation, he was instructed to rest until he was well or dead. He and Gertrude went to the Virginia mountains, but he had a stroke in September and passed away on January 3rd of 1945 at the age of 67. So after all that, what predictions did he make that came true? He predicted the stock market crash of 1929, World War II. He predicted telecom companies merging, like AT&T and all that stuff, and a pole shift, which thank God that hasn't come true yet, or we'd all be in trouble. But here we go. Here's the grave. Right here. Edgar Cayce, March 1877 to January 3rd of 45. People have left all kinds of trinkets. Let's see, we've got candy, pins, shells, rocks, beads, you know, all the typical stuff. Let's get one more good look. And not to be forgotten, here, let me step over this grave. There's Miss Gertrude right there. She passed away in April 1st, like April Fool's Day of 45, after he passed away in January. And when you come, there's multitude of entrances. You saw we came in up there, but there's multiple ways to get in, and you can't miss it. There's a sign right there, Edgar Cayce gravesite, right at the grave. So yeah, Edgar Cayce. So yeah, down in the comments, I guess if I had to ask questions, the first, you know, like, I'm gonna be silly and be like, the first question while he's asleep is like, hey, what's those Powerball numbers? And a serious, you know, I guess a more serious thing would be, what would the future be like? I don't really know how deep of a question, because, man, what would you ask? Like, if you got one reading that you would know, like, you could be greedy and do the Powerball, but what would you, like, if you could know your future, or whatever. That's a very deep question to me. I don't even know what I would ask. I would have to think about that. Like, the greedy part wants to know the lottery numbers or whatever, but some people may be as simple as, should I take this job or whatever. I think there's some truth in it. I feel like there's always a little bit of truth in everything. And sometimes maybe it gets played up a little bit, but I think he may have been the real deal. Like, maybe he was, like there was some kind of mutation or something. Like with all this UFO stuff, we're already in the land of woo-woo, right? So let's woo-woo it up. So like with this David Grush and the UFO committee and all that stuff, like what if he was tuned into something that most of us can't even connect to? Like I'm in IT, so it's like, what if he got an upgrade in his brain while the rest of us are still running DOS and he's running Windows or Mac or whatever? You know, maybe it's that kind of thing. Let's get back in the car and warm up. I can't feel my hands anymore. So I guess I'll see you guys on the next one. And you know what? You never know what you're going to find on the back roads. We even visited a prophet. You think, like, if somebody back then could have said, do you think somebody, like a particular person, will come visit your grave? He could have said who it was, or is that like too specific? I like saying Pacific, sorry. Yeah, I wonder if he could have even done that. I don't know, it just seems like one of those, it's been so long now that it's almost like a tall tale. Like Edgar Cayce to me kind of goes in the same vein as all of the stuff you hear, you know, like all that stuff. Like it's so long. Like I don't think there's probably nobody left that had a reading or anything like that. And if there is, let me know in the comments. I really would like to know that, because I want to go watch that stuff. But yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one.